Hello everyone, Dean Kelley again with the Georgia Transparency Coalition. We're sitting here today in an undisclosed location with Alan Painter, who is running for the commission seat, County Commission seat, District 4. As you all know, we're transitioning from a sub-commissioner to a board of commissioners, and Alan's running for District 4, which is the west side of the county, which encompasses Lookout Mountain, Chattanooga Valley, all the way down to the county line. And it's the only one, I guess there's not a Lookout Mountain. The city is the only city that's in that district. So it's a large district geographically, but each district has the same number of voters in it, which I think is approximately 1,700. But anyway, Alan, thank you for coming and sitting down with us today.
That's 17,000.
Yes, what I say, 1,700? 17,000, yeah.
That's all right. Oh man, this is a beautiful venue. I don't know if you can hear me over the chirping of the birds. But I am Alan Painter, and if we've never met, that's been my loss. Let me kind of tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Flintstone. I went to Chattanooga Valley High School. I went off to college to Atlanta, engineering school, and then had an opportunity to move back and been back ever since. And depending on what the good Lord has in store for me, I may depart from this area. I did have a chance to go to Georgia Tech. Best thing I ever done. Well, I'm sorry. Marrying my wife was the best thing I ever done. So second best thing I ever done. And I currently work as a software architect contractor for the military. Initially, I decided to go back and reactivate my security clearance because Tina is retiring from Gordon Lee at the end of May.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I heard she was going to retire.
We put the paperwork in, and I wanted to get my clearance back activated just now, and this is before I decided to run, to try to get things in place to kind of ease our life, when Tina does retire. I get asked all the time, how does a country boy from Walker County end up working for the military? I've never told this story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, I was 19 years old at Georgia Tech. My roommate, I'm not going to tell you his name, we decided, and again, I would encourage all young people not to do this today, in this day and time. We ended up hacking HBO. We ended up unencrypting their signal, and today that'll get you jail time.
Yeah.
I mean, felony. Well, that got me, as a 19-year-old kid, a job with the Army. Worked on the Tempest project. It's you can go to Tempest DOD on Google. Some of it's still classified, but I remember when I was asked to go through the clearance, the major was trying to get background about me, and come to find out I was 19. They can only go back 3 years to where you're 16. So normally they're lengthy dossiers. Mine was kind of thin. So why I decided to run in the 4th District, initially I didn't. I was supporting John Morehouse. We had like ideas, and when John called me up and said that he was not going to run, I asked him to think about it. And a month later he called back and said no, he was definitely not going to run. So that's when I decided to, and at the time there were not 5 people, including me. There's only one other, including me, and that's when I decided to enter the race. So I could probably talk an hour. I'm going to try to keep it succinct. What visions I had when I first entered the race, as far as what I wanted to accomplish, has changed. Everybody looks at COVID-19.
Yeah. I
I initially was looking at the budget, trying to figure out how to be a watchdog for the budget. We do need services. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not an absolute when it comes to taxes, of cutting taxes to near zero. That has all changed with COVID-19. A lot of folks, unfortunately, aren't working now. And I know at the federal level, the president and the Congress are doing different things, but you don't have to go far to find someone that's really in need. And now my thinking has changed, and I'm still not sure of the details, But everyone, I think, is going to assume because of COVID-19, then it's going to be an automatic budget increase. I'm going to look hard. I'm going to break out my red pen and look and scour the budget and see where we can, not necessarily reduce things, but maybe put off things to the point to where the economy gets back in play. The 4th District is a large geographic district. Mm-hmm. The needs of Flintstone, Lookout Mountain are totally different than the needs of the Cove. I don't know if you remember back in the 70s, or was it 80s? I think it was the 80s, that there was a group of outside folks that wanted to actually flood the Cove for a power pump distribution facility. And I can remember feeling so helpless as someone just reading the newspaper. We didn't have social media back then. But a group of folks got together and said, this is our home. This is beautiful. You're not going to forever change it. And that's the passion that I still carry today.
Well, that's wonderful. That, like I said, I don't know how the COVID-19, I'm sure it has, I don't know to what degree it has affected the revenues, not just our state revenue, but our local revenue as well, because, obviously when businesses are shut down, your sales tax is greatly diminished. Of course, you still have your property taxes, but I don't know what the impact is on our budget or our revenue has been. That's something I'd like to ask Shannon about, and I think I plan on doing it. Well, if you do get elected, do you have any specific priorities in mind that you would like to accomplish?
Public safety. That without public safety, we couldn't sit here peacefully and have this conversation. We'd be worried about all the shootings that goes on in Chattanooga. And initially, the last splosh, there were some broken promises. There were things not achieved. And I get it. I get it that people are disappointed, that certain things that were counted on, may not happen. I know we only got a few months left, probably won't happen. And so I understand when they, kind of automatic saying they're going to vote against it. But if you go through, and there's a laundry list of things, and some of it I think could be prioritized maybe later. But some of the things early on are all straight public service things. I had always had suspected, and as a hobbyist, I'm a scanner listener and ham radio operator, and I always had suspected that our radio system had issues. Never talked about it because I didn't have an official capacity to say for certainty. But the weather disaster of Sunday prior showed. And again, I'm not casting stones. I think it's a time to recognize the shortfalls and the gaps. And the splosh does have some money. If it's approved by the taxpayer, or by the voter, if it's approved, then I'm hopeful. If I am elected, I'm going to be pushing hard to get those implemented first, because there are some gaps in the radio coverage. And I know a lot of people are probably tuning out by now, but think about the fact if an officer or firefighter had to come to your location, leave their vehicle and go to the hand unit or the handheld unit, and it doesn't work, that's a public safety issue. And another thing that in my conversation with the folks is the fact that we all knew that Puckett is our ambulance provider. I personally did not know up until recently that a lot of their personnel are not from around here. Nothing bad about that. They all have a right to come in, and if they're best qualified, get the job. Let's face it, our county has got some places that unless you've been there, it's hard to find. Now, granted, they got GPS, but I think with the splosh upgrade, I think there's an opportunity, and of course the details, it's easy to say what I think versus what I know, but I think there's an opportunity there to maybe turn minutes into life-saving seconds. And with my expertise in engineering as a FCC licensed expert, as well as a software architect for the military, I'm not an arrogant person. You've known me a long time. But I'm thinking that is a set of unique skills that, if I am elected, that allow me to give oversight and, more importantly, prevent cost overruns. That's the thing. You know how a lot of projects are done. They go in, bid low, then they try to change order. That's a process of saying, well, we didn't anticipate this, so we need more money.
Yeah.
I like to think that I'm to the point in my career I can smell a change order a mile away and try to get ahead of that. But again, it takes me being on the board, having a voice. Now, as far as agriculture is concerned, for those that don't know, I am a commercial beekeeper. And I'm not going to talk a lot about the threats to bees. I think everybody knows it in general. But one thing that I do hope to achieve is if I'm elected, is to establish a formal, voluntary registration process where beekeepers can let the government know we've got hives. Because if you've ever seen a 6'1", overweight, 300-pound man run fast, we had a contractor come up my highway, Georgia 341, that wasn't from the area. And they were spraying, they had a job to do. But I had all my bees out there. And of course, I was in my bee suit and they immediately stopped when they saw a large man huffing and puffing and waving my arms. But the point is, I was lucky. I was there.
Yeah.
I didn't get a million bees eradicated from them doing their job. And this is why I feel like, protecting ag, it's easy to say, but you need to add thoughts and processes to really make it happen. Another thing about agriculture, which is so, in depth in the south end of District 4, is the fact that we have folks that think Walker County, that, as we already know, is our little slice of heaven. They want to move here. And if they happen to move out to Techwood Farms, they're going to hear donkeys baying. They're going to hear chickens cackling or a rooster crowing. And they may not like that at 6 in the morning. And so, guess what?
They're going to make a complaint about it.
That's right.
When they should have known that before they moved out here.
Well, and again, one of the process that I'm really promoting, or hopefully if I'm elected will promote, is agritourism. Because if you invite folks out, and it goes back to the fairs. You remember as we were younger, we could go to fairs that were very agricultural driven. And, we do have that now, but agritourism is something that is taking root, or agribusiness is taking root in Georgia, and I'd like to promote that. And the thing is, when you raise awareness, it's kind of hard to complain. Mm-hmm. When people see the fact that, hey, my eggs come from the refrigerator at the grocery store. Well, that's where it ends, not start.
Milk comes from a carton.
That's right.
Well, one of the things that you brought that up, one issue that I've, and Shannon has brought this issue to the forefront too, is, our ordinances. Mm-hmm. And he redid the ordinances.
He did.
And some people feel like those ordinances were a little too strict, and I know he backed off of what he originally was going to do on some of that. But my thinking has been that Walker County is such a large county, mm-hmm. and that you have different needs and you have different communities. Some are more rural than others. That rather than having a universal set of ordinances, that maybe the ordinances need to be more diversified based on the communities and what those needs were. In other words, what's appropriate in Rossville is not going to be appropriate at the south end in
the Cove.
In the Cove,
yeah.
That sort of thing.
Well, let me talk about something that's dear to my heart. Because I used to be chairman of Red Cross years ago, and I've seen a lot of goodness and not so goodness as far as people's lives are concerned. Mr. Whitfield signed into place an ordinance, I think it was March of last year, called Clean and Lean. I don't know if you heard that title.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a process where, at this point, I think it's a broken process, that a code agent can go in, or it could be triggered. I think 5 people could ask the code agent, codes enforcement officer, can go in and start a process on someone's either property or house. And I get that. They may be structures that are unsafe. Mm-hmm. I get that. Well, as it stands today, that code enforcement officer goes straight to magistrate court, and they probably some intermediate steps. Well, that owner has to go to magistrate, and then on the other side is a licensed attorney who's done hundreds of these, or quite a few of these, and this person may be like a lot of us, never been to court before. I have, but I'm just saying it may be their first time. They don't know what to do.
Right.
And here's a professional doing his job or her job. I think that's kind of broken, personally. So kind of pivoting back, the short term is because of COVID-19, the courts, unless it's an extreme emergency, are kind of on hiatus right now, which means all these, and I've been told a number of 300 cases of the clean and lean are pending. So they're pending. My take is, and again, I'm unelected, I can just stand at the, on the side of the road and shout, is the fact, since it's already pending, why don't we pin those or delay those all the way until the new board takes shape in January? Because obviously it's not a matter of time, or a factor of time is the essence, or else they'd already be doing something, because the court does allow for emergency cases. That way the new board can come in and take a second look. Now, my personal opinion, and again, if I'm elected, I'd only be one of 5, is the fact that there is a need for that, but the process is needs to be perfected in my mind. And what the perfection is, it'll end up, I don't know. That's what that's what a board's about. You try to go in and state your thinking, and then with the other 4 members come up with a consensus. But personally speaking, I think instead of going straight to magistrate court, there should be some sort of intervening citizen board, be it the Board of Commissioners themselves.
I think that's a good idea.
Themselves that can hear and
get it resolved, or come to a...
weigh the facts, and either push it forward to court or not. But as it is now, there's not that intermediate step. And again, if I'm blessed to be elected, I'm going to be an advocate for that, because there are some people, and they live near me, God bless their hearts, and they do the best they can.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true with a lot of people in this area. We have a pretty diverse community here. We have those that do very well, and we have those who are, are pretty much just struggling, week to week or month to month or whatever. So, just a little bit more about you, Alan. So, how long have you been involved with beekeeping?
Oh, geez, when I was 6 or 7 years old.
Wow. How many times have you been stung?
Let's just say more than 10.
Does that make you immune when you've been stung a certain amount of times?
It's still not pleasant. And I'm kind of getting off politics.
Yeah.
So I get calls at the business line all the time. I had one call with some folks that wanted to have their wedding in the midst of all the bees. And I asked my business attorney, he just laughed and hung up the phone. So we didn't do that. I've had calls, and again, I'm not an MD. I'm not a doctor. Even though I've slept in the Holiday Inn, I don't want to sound like I know what I'm saying as come as medicine, but I've had people call wanting to do what is termed as sting therapy.
Yeah.
And you may have heard of that. So
yeah, I have a buddy of mine that's done that.
Okay, well, allow me to repeat for the folks. So sting therapy is historically for HIV patients, that they think that controlled stinging has a benefit. Whether if it does or not, who's to tell? Well, again, I didn't have the insurance to cover if things went sideways, so I had to decline that as well. But getting back to being stung, yeah, I do swell. I just don't swell as much. But also I'm a little more in tune on how to handle the sting quickly. My late father, not my grandfather, but my late father taught me a technique to where you take salt and Crisco. The salt's the goodness. Crisco just keeps the salt stuck into the sting. Well, you got to remove the sting. And a lot of people will reach down and pinch it off. Well, that's where the poison sac is. So I keep straight edge cards and just kind of pick the sting out backwards. Then I've got a tool box, and I keep salt and Crisco in it. and pack the salt. And this is good for wasp stings, at least for me. And the Crisco, and it starts drawing that poison backwards.
Oh, wow, never heard that. Learned something new.
Yeah.
Have to try that next time hopefully
Yeah, I
there's
get
not a
stung
next
by a
time.
wasp.
Yeah, well, that's a country solution. So
A friend of mine, did the sting therapy, if I remember right. He's a little bit older than me, and plays a lot of tennis and stuff. And I used to play a lot of tennis, but he did the sting therapy because he said it helped his joints and that sort of thing.
yeah, and I had not heard that, but since I'm getting to the age that I ache more than I don't, maybe Joanne, I'll just go out there and let it happen. See what.
Hey,
Yeah.
trial and error.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, get back to politics, Alan. We got just a few minutes left. Do you want to just sum things up and why you're running and why people need to vote for Alan Painter?
Well, I'm a project-driven person. Always have been. One thing I can say without a blink of an eye, I'm not going to stay in. If I'm elected, I'm not going to stay in the office until my, elder years, because I like to think that the young people coming up, we need to get them prepared to take over. Because it's my dream to fish at a place that you can't pronounce somewhere in South America at some point. But since I have gotten into the election, into the sorry if that was my phone, into the election, into the race, to repeat, public safety is my number one motivator, in the sense that if we can't feel safe, then everything else just doesn't work for everyone. Second, or maybe co-equal, is being a taxpayer watchdog. Right, I think we had a battery change. So I apologize if I'm being redundant. I guess they'll splice it together, but you were asking me why. And I mentioned about public safety, and I've talked a few points, I won't go into detail. Being a taxpayer watchdog, for those of you that remembered, I did serve for a short time on the school board back about 20 years ago. And so I'm used to complex budgets from multiple income sources and multiple outgoing sources. And I would surprise folks when they come in and talk about it, and then I'd have questions. And they weren't necessarily used to a board member asking questions. So fair warning, if I'm elected, I will have lots of questions. They're fair questions. I'm not big into the I got you sort of thing. I'm going to be very sensitive to the fact that because of COVID, the sales tax, as you mentioned, I have no doubt is going to be down, just because so many small business hairdressers. I know some of them are opening up. Potential with Governor Kemp's order on Friday.
Yeah.
So my website from a smartphone or a computer is Alan, A-L-A-N, Painter, P-A-I-N-T-E-R, alanpainter.com. My number is 706-858-4444, and I appreciate your support and vote.
Well, Alan, we appreciate you sitting down and talking with us today. Hopefully that helps a lot of the voters get to know you a little bit better. And be sure and vote June 9th. That's when it's been moved back to. And there'll probably be a runoff after that, since there's 5 of you running.
I hope not.
I hope not, but I'm sure you'll be hearing from Alan in the near future. So thank you so much. Thank you, Alan, for coming.
Thank you.